So in this video, I want to talk to you about the 5 stages of fat loss. And I'm really excited about this video because what I've noticed from working with hundreds of people is that they all go through a very, very, very similar process with exactly the same stages. Everyone has like different amount of time at each stage, and it kind of comes about a little bit differently. Some people work through it at different rates, but every single person that I've ever worked with goes through these 5 stages. It's kind of like the stages of grief, which sounds a bit morbid. And I really hope that you'll take this video seriously and won't just think, whatever, because this will really outline the journey and hopefully give you some sort of relief and reassurance at whatever stage you're in, that this is perfectly normal and everyone, without exception, goes through the exact same thing. So I really hope you'll take all of this on board. So the 5 stages are this. First of all, getting started, foundations. The second stage is the valley of disappointment. The third stage is the plains of consistency. The fourth is progression. And then the 5th stage, there's 2 stages that different people go into, either maintenance or going into the next pregnancy. So let's go through each stage one by one. Starting with foundations, obviously the beginning, getting started. There's a lot here, right, on this slide. There's a lot of information here, but bear with me. There's a lot going on in the beginning stages, and you'll probably, if you're there right now, you probably, feel a little bit like this slide, like lots and lots and lots of information, lots of things to do, but there's no way around it. There is a lot to learn. There is a lot ahead of you. You do not have to do it all at once. And the sooner that you realize that you can just do it one thing at a time and, just to stay calm, the sooner you're going to kind of like ease into things and really start learning. So the first stage, this getting started stage, is really about the big rocks, okay? Learning the big rocks of fat loss and nutrition and training and the psychology of all of this. And what my program does differently to others is it isn't some random protocol, just arbitrary protocol that you just have to do without thinking about it. It's what I do is find what works for the individual, why it works for the individual, and you need to learn a lot about yourself. The foundations of training and nutrition is actually incredibly easy. The bit that's hard is your mind, is everything that's going on inside your head and the psychology of humans. So the big rocks that we're going to cover and we're going to learn in this initial stage is learning new skills, like how to track food, right? Which you probably don't know how to do well or accurately or consistently. Learning new knowledge about calorie and macro content of foods, learning how full foods make you feel. And this is probably something that you've never thought about before and no diet has ever talked about with you, but it is one of the keys to successful fat loss. You'll be learning a lot about your emotions and your mood and how they affect your calorie intake and your eating habits. You'll also be learning the basics of strength training, even if you consider yourself to be intermediate. If you haven't been getting the results that you want from your training, you're probably missing some basic things. You're going to be learning a lot about what works for you and what doesn't. You're going to be learning a lot about what habits made you put on weight in the first place, some quite humbling realizations. And all of this process is geared towards figuring out a formula for fat loss that works for you, right? I don't have the secret sauce. I don't have magic fairy dust. I don't have a secret formula that is going to work for everyone. It's about finding the specifics that are going to work for you. And this stage is characterized by a very steep learning curve, okay? You're going to be learning a lot and very quickly. You're probably going to feel quite overwhelmed and you're going to be feeling a lot of uncertainty, like fuck, is this actually going to work? Like, you have no proof it's going to work. You're just trusting me, basically, that I'm telling you it's going to work. So there's a lot of uncertainty involved, and I get that. That's not easy. There's going to be a lot of fears, like it's not going fast enough, I should be losing weight faster, and things like that. There's going to be lots of noise in your head, probably from all of the food rules that you've accumulated throughout the years, about what you should eat and shouldn't eat, and when you should eat, and all this stuff. And that's all going to come to the surface and make you feel really overwhelmed. But it's okay. We're going to work through it bit by bit and always bring you back to those big rocks. This part of the process is also characterized by increased awareness. Most people are completely unaware of their eating habits, of what's in the food they eat, of how their moods affect and their lifestyle affects their eating habits. So you're suddenly going to gain a lot of self-awareness through this process. You're also going to start to learn how to control your emotions around the scale, the rate of fat loss, and the fluctuations. This is absolutely key. You're probably going to be like, oh my God, the scale jumped up and I should be losing weight faster. And maybe upset about the weight on the scale at all. But we're going to start to, quieten that noise down and just see it as data. Start to take away the emotionality and from the number, and just try to see it as objectively as possible. And I'm here to help you with that, obviously, with all of it. It's also characterized by a lot of excitement and novelty and enthusiasm for some people. For some people, the overwhelm is going to be much more than the excitement. But a lot of you might feel a lot of excitement and motivation and energy around the process. There's going to be a lot of realizing how your mind gets in the way more than anything else. And we're also going to be letting go of a lot of food rules and the noise, like I mentioned before. Also, you might find that during this stage, you start to freak out about every meal out, every special occasion, every weekend and holiday. And what most people do is they write to me saying, I've got this problem with this thing. And they sort of almost assume that, they assume that they're going to ruin all their progress, and that these things are like the end of the world and are deal breakers for the diet, which they're not, right? We're going to learn how to do this in real life and not in a vacuum, not when you have 3 to 6 months to dedicate 100% to a diet and training plan. We're learning how to do this with our busy lives and with little children. But it's also, what I find interesting is that everyone seems to think that they are the first person to experience this problem, and the first person in the history of the world to notice that these things get in the way and are harder than when you're in your routine during the week, things like the weekend or Shabbat or any kind of holiday. And actually, quite a humbling thing, I think, is realizing that pretty much everything, the top 10 problems that you'll come up with in the first couple of weeks, I have a video for it. Why do I have a video for it? Because literally everyone else who's ever done the program has had the exact same problems as you. And that can be quite reassuring, but because you're not the only one to struggle with this, but it's also quite humbling. Like, oh, this is not like such a big deal like I thought it was. There's a lot of realizing that it's mostly just your mind that gets in the way, and also realizing that why everything else that you've tried in the past has failed. And that comes with a grain of hope that like this might actually work in the long run. The second phase, absolutely everyone goes through this around the 2 to 4 week mark. They fall into the valley of disappointment. And this is where the novelty and excitement wears off. And it's really all about, will you keep going even though it's not new and exciting anymore? Or will you just give up? Because some people do. Not everyone makes it through the valley of disappointment. It's a kind of realization that what you have to do on a day-to-day basis is really not that glamorous or exciting compared to some of the other diets you might have done in the past, where it's like this total overhaul of your life and this really exciting training program and this really exciting rules around food. And this really isn't that exciting because you're going to be eating the same things, just kind of making some adjustments to your diet to make it work for your life and your goals. And this realization that a lot of what you need to do is actually quite mundane and tedious or even boring. Okay. And some people are just too impulsive to be able to deal with that. But most people sort of feel like, okay, this is what I have to do. This is okay. I can do this. Will you put your long-term goals before instant gratification? And I think the Valley of Disappointment is characterized by realizing that this is what fat loss is about. It's about putting your long-term goals before instant gratification. It's also about learning the hard way that motivation is not going to get you through this. I talk about motivation in another video, but what you're going to need is automations and habits. This Valley of Disappointment, VOD, is characterized by very low energy and sometimes a kind of, oh, what the fuck have I done feeling. Again, just because it's not that exciting. And realizing that you're not special, that you have the exact same struggles as everyone else. And also accepting that this process is going to be hard. Some people are doing this because they want to find the easy way to lose weight, and it's not that easy. It's not hard in the same ways that you thought it was going to be hard, but it's not easy either. The reason why it's hard is because your own brain gets in the way and self-deception is so easy, and lots of other things about your psychology that are going to be really apparent. If we get you through the Valley of Disappointment, and more than 80% of my clients get through the Valley of Disappointment, and then we get out into what I call, rather cheesily, but it works, the plains of consistency. When you get to this stage, you will have learned new skills. You'll have calmed the fuck down. And now you'll know that all you need to do is just show up consistently and do the things. That it's really not that hard or complicated, but what's hard is just staying the course and just doing it and realizing that there's no one thing that you can do that's going to get you quick results, that it's going to be the culmination of lots of consistent effort. It's also characterized by the acceptance of trade-offs and the reality of weight loss, right? Realizing that there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs, and that there is no easy way, that you are going to have to sacrifice one thing for another. And just that reality of what weight loss is going to take, what sort of effort weight loss is going to take. And when you come in, you'll know you're in the plains of consistency when you feel like you have a reliable formula and it's just ticking over. So what happens in the plains of consistency is people go from sort of that scramble of the beginning stage of like not knowing what's going to work and not knowing what they need to do and having all this noise in their head to have kind of filtered out all the noise and knowing, okay, if I do X, I'm going to get Y weight loss every week. Right? And you're just going to have this trust, this calm kind of trust in the process because it's just going to be ticking over. You're just going to be doing the things week after week and seeing the weight come down. And a good rate of weight loss is between 0.5% and 1% of your body weight each week. And it just can't go faster than that, right? It just cannot go faster than that. If you weigh 200 pounds, you can lose 2 pounds a week. But if you are like a normal sort of size, you're not going to be losing more than like 0.5 pound a week, and you're going to be okay with that. Okay, you're going to have much less uncertainty because you know it works, right? You have proof it works. It's been working so far, and now you have to just keep doing it. Again, there's this realization that it's not going to take this one massive effort or overhaul, but lots of small things that add up over time. And this acceptance that fat loss just takes the time it takes. Again, you're going to be ticking over at that, like somewhere between like 0.5% to 1% of your body weight every week. And that it can't go faster than that, right? You can't speed it up. That even if you didn't eat for a week, you can't lose all the weight that you want to lose, right? There's no monumental effort that you can make. And a couple of expressions that I really love is one, you can't make a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant, right? There is just a 9-month process that goes into making a baby human, and you can't speed that up. You can't make it take less time. It just takes the time that it takes. Even if you give birth 2 months early, that baby still needs the same process, the same amount of time to grow into a 9-month-old baby, right? And another great expression or like analogy that I love is that if you're baking a cake and you want it to go faster, you can't just turn up the heat on the oven and have it cooked in 5 minutes, right? There is just a process that happens to get it cooked. And this process is the same. You can only get into so much of a deficit, and so you can only lose so much weight each week, and it's just going to take the time that it takes. Also, you're not a robot, so sometimes you're going to slip up, sometimes you're going to overeat, sometimes you are going to like mess up, or just be like, fuck it, I can't be bothered, and you're just not going to be able to do it all the time. You're going to have these little breaks from the diet, and that's okay. You can still make great progress over a number of months or a number of weeks, even when you have these slip-ups. And that's something that isn't on these slides that I suddenly thought of. Like, the first stage is this kind of stage of thinking like the tiniest little slip up. If I get one day wrong, if I go over my calories, if I eat too much, if I have a binge, I've completely ruined everything and I throw it all in the bin. Whereas the planes of consistency, you realize, okay, sometimes I'm going to overeat, sometimes I'm going to overdo it. If I just get back on track the next day, over a number of months, I'm going to make progress. I am going to slip up. I am going to make mistakes. I'm not going to be perfect for the next few months. That's a really, really, really important realization that people have when they come into the planes of consistency. Also realize that this process is all about creating new habits, that your old habits got you to where you are now, and that the creation of new habits is going to create your new body. And they need to be sustainable. They need to be bearable. They need to be enjoyable as well. And they're going to help you reach your goals, and they will help you maintain your new body in the long run. Okay. And that you just can't go back to your old way of doing things. It's also characterized by just keeping things simple, right? Just doing the simple things consistently. And during this phase, there's a lot less overwhelm. There's a lot more calm. And there's this kind of maturation process of understanding what you need and what you can and can't do, and understanding the trade-offs and kind of being an adult about this. Stage 4 is progression. You've got all of those big rocks down. You've been ticking over, just doing the things you need to do. And you have this formula that works and will continue to work. But now you can start to make tweaks along the way, and you can start to add complexity. So in the beginning, we keep things as simple as possible. We don't need any complex strategies. During this process, you're going to be tweaking small things that don't make you, again, don't completely change the whole thing and make you lose weight way faster. They just tweak things. You focus on getting 1% better every day or week. And you just tweak things to give you a slight advantage in terms of fat loss or muscle gain or gaining fitness or feeling in a better mood or whatever, that just give you that slight advantage on the diet all the time. Learning new skills and knowledge. Okay, so phase 1, lots and lots and lots of new skills and knowledge to learn. Phase 2 and 3 is more about just doing those things, right? There's not really much new learning that happens. Whereas this phase, progression, is focused. Now that you're calm and you understand the big rocks, you now have headspace to learn new things. So we can start to introduce more advanced training and nutrition strategies that just weren't relevant in the beginning. So we can introduce things like calorie and carb cycling that we just can't do until you have a good grip of the foundations. We're also going to work on increasing your sphere of comfort with nutrition, with training, with different situations. And we're going to be challenging you a little bit. Now that you sort of feel confident, you have competence in this process, we can start to stretch you a little bit. You're going to keep on learning about yourself, and I'm going to be pushing you to do some writing exercises, some journaling exercises. You're going to be learning about your mood and your often limiting beliefs around food and fat loss and training and things like that. You'll be progressing with the weights and getting stronger in the gym and working towards some daunting things like pull-ups and push-ups and heavier weights and stuff like that. And again, even though there's a lot of growth and a lot of information during this phase, there is much less overwhelm because you can just take it on one by one and it fits into the paradigm that we've already built. Then we move on to stage 5. And like I said, there are 2 parts to stage 5. Some of you are going to be moving on to maintenance. Okay. So you're going to be transitioning from fat loss into maintaining these habits and maintaining this weight for the rest of your life. And for the most part, what we'll do is a reverse diet, which means bringing your calories up as gradually as we can, as much as you have patience and time for, probably, up to maintenance calories and finding your new maintenance calories. And then you'll be hanging out there and just getting used to eating in maintenance calories every day or across the course of a week. Okay. And what I like to point out here is that maintenance is harder than what you were doing before, right? But it's also much, much easier than the fat loss phase. So this graph is what I like to use from hardest to easiest. The hardest are hopefully by now you've realized that, like, you know, the hardest is like stupid diets you did in the past, like, you know, starvation diets and cleanses and stuff like that, right? And this diet is much, much easier than that. But it's nowhere near as easy as what you were doing before / eating whatever the fuck you want, right? There is an element of control and restriction. And maintenance, in terms of how hard it is somewhere between this diet and doing whatever the fuck you want, right? And depending on how crazy your habits were before, it's going to be, it depends on how far along that spectrum is, right? But it's going to be much, much easier than the fat loss phase. But you can't just go, what most people do after a diet, they don't have any tools for maintaining it. So they just go all the way back to what they were doing before. And then they end up putting on the weight and having the same body they had before. For some of you, the 5th stage is going to be marked by your next pregnancy, right? You're going to have lost weight to get healthy for the next pregnancy. And now, in the plainest terms, you're going to want to know how to not get fat and unfit in your next pregnancy. And so we're going to focus again on 3 aspects of this. Food. So we're going to learn how calories apply to pregnancy. Some of you might want to track during pregnancy or through part of your pregnancy. Some of you might not want to, but you're going to understand calorie balance in pregnancy. We're going to talk a bit about nutrition for pregnancy, but a little bit less because it's just honestly quite simple. Training for pregnancy, how to adapt strength training for the needs of pregnancy. And also mindset. There's a big mindset element of this. How you approach pregnancy, like when it comes to, with regards to your diet, your body, the changes, modifying, and so on and so forth. There you have it. Those are the 5 stages of fat loss that you are going to go through on this program. And hopefully you can recognize yourself in at least one of these stages. And now you know what's ahead of you, like what the next stages are going to be like. If you're right at the beginning of this journey and you're feeling really overwhelmed and you don't know what to do and you feel like it's a lot of information, don't worry. Everyone goes through this and it does get easier. Just take a deep breath and focus on what's right in front of you. And then we'll focus on the next step and then the next step and the next step. You can only do one thing at a time. By the end of it, you are going to have a formula for fat loss and for keeping it off that you know works for you, that you understand the trade-offs of. There are going to be no absolutes like you must cut out carbs or you must not eat after this time. Just understanding what the advantages and disadvantages are of each individual change that you can make and why that it might work for you and why it might not work for you. There's going to be a lot more nuance involved than just learning, like black and white rules that you find in lots of other diets, but it will help you maintain it for the long run.